What's going on, everybody? I appreciate y'all tuning the channel today here at 323 Fabrication. So it is a really exciting day for me. I hope y'all are as excited as I am. I know we bounce around a little bit. We got a lot going on, got a lot of projects, and then I make commitments to do things that I don't really have the time for. So you can see that behind me. That is not my S10. It's out there. So in the middle of rebuilding the transmission for the S10 and doing a heads cam swap on the motor, I decided that I wanted to do Hotrod Power Tour this year. Well, the car I want to do that with is this Chevy II Gasser, 1964. Got a straight axle front end, 9-inch Ford out back, disc brakes all the way around, has a wave track, 35 splines with a 456 gear. Pretty awesome stuff. So had a stroke small block in it. The balancer come apart on it because the crank had been repaired and the repair was a little bit higher than the actual diameter, so when I pressed the balancer on it, broke. And so the balancer came apart, so that motor's got to be rebuilt again. It had a Muncie 4-speed in it, 55 miles an hour, was 2,500 RPM, so driving this car anywhere was not really like reasonable. And I kind of want to put an aluminum motor in it so I lose some nose weight, plus double overdrive with a T56 6-speed. So let me show you what we got going on. All right, y'all, this is the car. So this is mock-up stuff. This is a blowed up 98 SS SLP LS1. It's trashed, block's cracked, but it's clean, it's aluminum, it's light, easy to deal with. Some stripped 862s. This is gonna be our mock-up motor. This is the trans that is going in it. This is a LT1 T56 that has been converted. I had a buddy, if you go back to, I don't know, it's been a few videos, but I did a partial turbo kit on a red WS6 Trans Am. This is the original trans out of his car, and he LS'd it, converted all this. It's a sweet trans. So it is going in this car. That is the plan. This is a pretty sweet car. It's really light. Car's really light. Manual steering, manual brakes. It does have discs all the way around. It stops really well. Got to change fuel pressure regulator, fuel pump. We're putting it on a Holley Terminator X, which we actually got already. Hoping to use the same drive shaft. I've got some ICT billet, LS swap stuff. I'll break all this out in a little bit. There's our Holley drive shaft, oil pan, some cool finned valve covers we picked up at a swap meet. But it's a pretty sweet car. It's got Cobalt SS seats in it. I got a buddy that's gonna remove the headrest and make them seem like low back buckets and fit the rear seat in it. Console out of a Jeep. It's got a full set of auto meters in it. Probably gonna have to cut the floor up to get the shifter in the right location, but this is what we got. It's got a 295 65 15 Mickey Thompson on the back with Viking coilovers. It has not been radiused. Still got the factory wheel wells, but fuel cell in the trunk, battery in the trunk. That's it. That's what we got going on. It's a lift-off fiberglass hood. I built these little hood hinges. Saw them in a picture in a magazine. Built my own set. They work really well because I don't like taking the hood off. Built this hood prop rod. Works good. This is the car. Sold my last 4th gen F body. Took the money from that. Bought this roller. Then had to redo everything because it wasn't at all what it was supposed to be. But it works now. And I love it. Just ready to get it back on the road. So that's the plan. We're going to LS it. That's 6-speed. This is a mock-up motor. We're going to do, this is a Gen 4 2014 5.3 LS. It's an LMG. It's got 799 heads. It's got flat tops with valve reliefs. Gen 4 floating rods. It is a DOD VVT motor. All that's going away. The heads are going to go back on it. But it's getting a Tick Polluter V2 cam that I bought for the LS1 for the last Camaro I sold. Still got all that stuff. So that's the plan for this motor. And while we're working on that, we're going to go ahead and mock stuff up. So that's the plan with this. So y'all hang out with us. We're going to get started on this because it is the 7th of April and Hotrod Power Tour begins June the 12th. and I'd like to drive the car a little bit prior to that. So that's why we stopped working on the S10, and now we're gonna work on the Chevy II. All right, we got it put together in one unit. 2 bolts in each head, a few bolts in the bell housing, a few bolts in the trans should be sufficient. We've got our lift plate on there. I pulled the stick off the MGW shifter, but I'm gonna leave that on there to keep trash out of it and then kind of see where it lands in the car. And then what we've got going on now, I'm over here, I got all my ICT billet stuff out. These are the mounts we ordered. So these are small block to LS, which means they'll take these. There's 3 different locations, and then this is how it mounts in the frame. This is old style. Hopefully we can make this work. And then we've also got a ICT billet valley cover. Takes a stock gasket. And then a low mount alternator kit. Try to keep the motor clean. Remote mount coil brackets. A oil pressure sending unit relocation deal, and a set of LS7 Delphi lifters, all from ICT billet. So y'all check them out. They got lots of LS swap stuff, and I'm kind of hoping to keep the motor clean. I know it's an LS. I know it's not the best looking motor, but you can dress them up and make them look old. And for this motor, for the cathedral port motor, like a LS6 intake's the best thing I can do to make it look better. But the plan here, I know I said aluminum block. This is aluminum block. That is cast iron. LMGs are cast iron. But the plan eventually, that's a Gen 4 motor, right? So I ordered a Gen 4 Holley harness. Plan eventually, I got a 6.2 upstairs that's aluminum that I want to stroke and do a Speedmaster ITB setup, individual throttle body stack setup that looks a lot like, here, I'll show y'all what it looks a lot like. It's so cool. It's classic. And then, you know, we'll hide all the wires, hide everything we can, but it'll look like that. We'll have stack injection on the LS in the car. Try to keep it classic looking, but it'll give me, you know, the fuel injection, the drivability, the fuel mileage, and the 2 overdrives, which is really the goal because I love driving this car. So that's what we got going on. We're gonna break these open, throw them on the block, and then see about stuffing this thing in the car. We talked about it, and as tall as this car is, it makes it kind of hard to work on. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the front end off the car. Dad's working on the headlight bezels now. We're gonna pull it as complete as we can, but we're gonna, you know, pull the fenders off of it, pull the whole front nose. That way we can just not have to fight with this thing. That's the right way to do it. It's an extra hour worth of work or whatever. So that's what we're gonna do, and I think it's the right move. Plus it keeps us from messing it up as bad. So he's working on that. I'm gonna throw it up on the time lapse, but then I wanted to show you all this. So we got these bolt to the block with a countersunk Allen head, you know, and then these bolt to it. There's 3 positions. This is the most rear, which will bring the motor the most forward. But I've been looking at it, and I actually think this is the driver's side, but you could actually swap these plates and bring the motor way forward. So we're gonna see what we can do. I'm gonna try to not have to get the drive shaft cut. I'm already thinking I'm gonna have to cut the floor up, but I guess we're gonna see. So y'all hang out with us. That was definitely the thing to do. A little more work. When we take things apart, we try to take all the bolts and put them back where they go. So these are the only ones that didn't have a home to go back to. So that's really not too bad. This is the car with the front end off of it. Speedway Gasser front end. I had to change these. These are Mustang 2 shocks. And then working on figuring out the spacing and all that stuff. And then eventually I'll get some adjustable ones because you can buy those aftermarket. The ones that came with the Speedway kit, I had about 1 inch of compression, and when we set the motor in it, it just bottomed it out. We're also going to change these leaf springs. You can see the hangers directly up and down. I got another set that's a hair longer with a little bit more rating. We'll change these leaf springs if we have time. I was driving it like this though. It works. So that's the front end off the car. It's fairly simple. I tried to have everything basically plug and play. It's not perfect, but I mean, it works. Let's see. We'll go back here. And then there's the grill and the core support. Both fenders. The front bumper. The little cross piece there. And there's lights and hood hinges and whatnot. So not too bad. We're gonna see if we can set this motor in here now. Motor mounts. It's on the rearmost location, but now these could be swapped side to side and we could actually move the motor farther forward. And I'll get under the car in a minute and show y'all what that looks like, but we're clearing the firewall. Okay. I gotta get the cross member under it to hold it up, but I will throw an intake on it, even a big ugly truck intake, and see what our clearance looks like. The motor's got a little bit of down angle, but I mean, that's not an issue. I'm gonna come up a little bit more. This is our throttle right here. And it'll be, you know, there or whatever. Well, I probably had to redo all that. Thought about doing the drive-by-wire, but I didn't do it because I don't think it'll work with the ITB setup. But this is what we got. Motor's in it, mounts are set. I'm gonna get under the car, take y'all with me, let you see what we're working with, and then show you what it looks like from the inside of the car. I'm a squeaky floor jack, or squeaky creeper. So it's in here, plenty of clearance, because I opened all this up for the side shift stuff on the Muncie. But this is pretty well, jack handle's in the way, pretty well centered. And then you can see, you know, we're kind of offset from our hole. I'm gonna get the trans cross member, which mounts right there. Looks like it's gonna be pretty close. It might be good enough to be able to just leave the trans in it, but I'm gonna have to put the drive shaft in it and see if the drive shaft works, because if it doesn't, we've got to readjust this, because I really don't want to get the drive shaft cut and shortened and rebalanced. It won't take long, but it's, you know, a little bit of money, and I've already got to adjust the shifter hole in the floor, so why not just, you know, adjust it some more and not have to cut the drive shaft. But you can see it's in there. I don't know if y'all can tell what you're looking at, but it's centered it's about center of the tunnel, about even with the middle of this. So it's really not that much off. They do sell offset shifters, I believe, but I don't think enough to make up that difference. So I'm gonna have to cut the floor, which isn't a big deal because I did that anyway. This was a 6-cylinder Power Glide car from the factory, and you know, we put the pedals in it and everything else, so it's all good. It is on a Willwood hydraulic master cylinder for the clutch, and then, you know, manual brakes, all that fun stuff, line lock, the important things. But that's what we got, guys. So I'm gonna hop under the car and throw the cross member under it, and then that way I can get the floor jack out of the way. I'm gonna go grab the drive shaft and see what we look like. Okay, so the fact that the trans cross member we've got won't work. The mount on the trans is about 4 inches farther back than that is. And then I just got under there, and the drive shaft, which I already knew, I checked it out on Google, and a T56 versus a Muncie. Let me show y'all. I done wrote it down. All right, so overall length, there to there, the difference is 2 inches in total length, right? So the drive shaft, motor and trans need to come forward about 2 inches. So it's about Well, I mean, that's literally what it was, about 2 inches. And then the mount location difference is about 5.4. So what we're gonna do, even though these are labeled passenger driver, I don't think it actually matters, is we're gonna pick this up, take these mounts loose, take these plates off, and switch sides. So put the driver's side on the passenger side and the passenger side on the driver's side, and then try to gauge, you know, about where we're gonna put the motor. You know, bring it forward about 2 inches is the goal. So that's the plan. We're gonna work on that, see what we come up with. All right, so drive shaft fits in it now, but it sticks too far out of the trans, the yoke does. Here, walk over here and show you. So it's only engaging that far, which isn't enough. I'd like it to be back here somewhere. And so we did some figuring on this, and when we flip it back around, it's too short. We had to have the drive shaft shortened, and I don't want to spend the money on that and change all that and send it off and wait on it to come back. So we were looking at it. We need about 1 inch. Well, this is where the motor mount bolt is, right? So we're gonna take this loose, take all this off, put this motor, through bolt this. So come through this hole and through bolt the motor mount into the block, and then drill and tap this one and do the same thing on the bottom, and that should move it, I'm guessing, about 7/8 of an inch rearward, and that should give us what we need, hopefully. And then after that, we'll tackle the trans cross member, and then we'll be ready to kind of rock and roll. All right, y'all, it's Saturday, day 2 of our LS swap on the Chevy II Gasser. So I'm gonna show you what we got going on. We did some figuring yesterday about kind of how to fix the motor mount issue. I showed you where the drive shaft was only engaging about half of the yoke. We figured out where to kind of position these and gain about 11/16 of an inch, which will put us about 2/3 of the yoke about where it was engaged in the Muncie, and that should be just fine. So I'll show y'all what we got going on and explain how we're gonna do it, and then we'll run through the process and try to get this thing set in here where it needs to be so the drive shaft will go in it. Then I'm gonna pull the seats and start cutting the floor out. And then I gotta build a transmission cross member. But we won't have to shorten the drive shaft or get it rebalanced or anything like that. So that was the goal. All right. So here's what we got going on. This is the passenger side ICT billet. Now, this is an American-made mount. We got it flipped to the driver's side over here. So the way it was, I'll show y'all. On the other side. So it's been flipped around, and then we are in the farthest forward bolt holes, which puts the motor as far back as we can. You see we got plenty of firewall clearance, but that's not going to work because I really don't want to have to cut the drive shaft, and I'd rather the motor be a little bit closer to the firewall. So with this bolted on here, right, what we're going to do, trying to visualize this for y'all, is we're going to move, instead of using the farthest forward, which is this one, we're going to use this as our upper bolt hole, and then drill and tap these two. And we don't have a metric set of taps, so it's going to be standard 3/8, 16 is the thread count. So what I did is I lined it up where it's supposed to be. It will raise the mount just a hair, but I don't think it's enough to really affect anything. You can see how that is taller than that one, but that's the plan. I've got it center punched, and then we will drill and tap this so that we can move the motor mount where we need it and gain 11/16 of an inch. So it is a 3/8 16 tap, which calls for a 5/16 drill bit. So I'll drill a pilot hole with an 8 and work my way up to this 5/16. That should be no problem. Grab my short tape. If you ever have an old tape measure, you can break it into handy little rulers like this. So if we measure this, we're gaining right at, wait, it's this hole, sorry. Let's see, farthest forward would be, yeah, so that one that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Okay, yeah, so this one and this one. So, farthest forward, we're gaining right at, sorry guys, I'm trying to look around the camera, 11/16. And then if you come over here to where we marked the drive shaft, this was just outside the seal. So if we put 11/16 on that, wait, 11/16, then that's where it'll ride. And that should be sufficient. Check it out, y'all. Got the motor mounts done. They're mounted up in the car where we drilled and tapped them and moved the motor back. I haven't tested the drive shaft yet because we've been busy. We went ahead and pulled the interior out, the front seats and the console, so I can cut this and pick the trans up where it's supposed to be, and then we'll check the drive shaft. But while we were here, we were talking, and we're gonna do power tour, right? Well, 1,300 miles on these big old drag radials just, you know, probably ain't the best idea. So I was gonna get some street tires for the car. And we got these 15x10s that my buddy Michael hooked me up with, and I love them. So I was gonna put street tires on these wheels, but I think I'm gonna put street tires on these wheels. Let me back up so y'all can see the whole car. See what you think. Probably paint the center of them gray to kind of match these front wheels. I think it looks really good though. And they're almost the exact same offset, and they're the same size as these American Racing Torque Thrust wheels that were on the car. Those are killer. You can see we got a thing for them. Interior stripped. Got a danger wheel, safety glasses, and some hearing protection. I'm gonna try to cut the tower piece out and remove it, and then cut where the shifter location's got to come up. I am gonna cover the trans with a fire blanket in just a second. And that way we can get the trans picked up where it's supposed to be, and then I can check my drive shaft to make sure we're still good before we get any farther. And then I have to do some patching and whatnot, of course. So that's what we got going on. And finna get started. We got the trans picked up a good bit, so the motor's sitting closer to level. See, couldn't pick the trans up before because it was hitting. So this is the shifter location. I'm not going to uncover it completely because there's a bunch of trash here. But what I got to do is get under there and see if I can get the drive shaft in here and kind of see where it looks like. And then see if we're good. And if that's the case, then I got to figure out exactly how this is going to fit over it, location and everything. And then start trimming and making patch panels, clean all this up because it's a mess. But that was hard to cut out where I had welded it in. See, this was an automatic power glide car. This piece was ordered for this car, but normally it's set farther up. So I brought it back and had to lengthen it with this piece here because I wasn't going to buy a separate tail housing and a different shifter for the Muncie, which is what's required to do it the right way on a 63 through a 65 Chevy II with a 4-speed. So I just made it work because I had to cut a hole in the floor anyway. So I built all that to clear the linkage, and now there's plenty of room, but I'm not going to undo that. That can just stay. Because it works. It worked the way it was. So now we just got to build all the stuff to make it work this way. The 6-speed. But I'm going to jump under here with the drive shaft, see what it looks like, go from there. Still not enough engagement. So guess we're going to go back to the drawing board for the motor mounts, move it back some more. I think part of that is because we had the trans so low because it was hitting the floor that it was engaging more. So when I took my measurement, I thought we were going to be good, but we haven't actually gained what I thought we would because we had to pick the trans up to fit it into the tunnel and get the motor more level. And then we've also got just a little bit of clearance right here. So that's what we got. Third time's a charm. So we swapped these back. This is the driver's side back over here, but we're in this engine mount hole and using the 2 holes that we drilled and tapped, just opposite sides, which moved this mount from this bolt being in this engine mount hole to being here. So we actually moved the motor back about another 11/16. And then you can see this partial hole. That's the original place we put it, and the drive shaft wouldn't go in. So we're about where we need to be now. We did use the places we modified it for. We just had to switch them back sides again. And we'll snug all this up. But I'm going to take you in there and show you the engagement of the drive shaft and what we got going on for that. It looks to be about where it was with the Muncie, which is good. That's how much engagement we got. And then, I'm going to have to mock all this up and get it all figured out, but should be pretty good to go. Still gonna have to build a trans cross member, but that's all part of it. But the drive shaft doesn't have to be modified at all, which is the goal. Floor was gonna have to be modified no matter what, because a Muncie is a side shifted transmission with linkage and the shifter mounted off to the side of the tail housing. Obviously we knew the trans cross member wasn't gonna work because the T56 is longer. And then we finally were able to get the motor mounts to do what we wanted them to. Still plenty of firewall clearance, which is awesome. We got more on this than we did on the small block. And have plenty of front clearance, which all it's gonna have is a mechanical water pump and an alternator, because Vega, manual steering box, manual brakes, no air conditioning, nothing fancy like that. So I am gonna do a mechanical water pump because I'll be able to buy it at a parts store. Just a 9802 F-body water pump is the spacing I'm going to run. I think I've got one upstairs already. But the goal is to be able to stop at the parts house and get something like that if we need it. Same thing, going to run an F-body alternator. Because eventually the goal is to do drag and drive events with this car. So pretty stoked about that. But I'm going to start prepping this and cleaning it up. Because that's kind of the next goal. We got to get this figured out and then get the trans cross member figured out. Then we'll be ready to rock and roll. Check it out. I know I haven't really accomplished anything. I gotta take this back out, but this is the stick and the handle that I was running on the Muncie. got it bolted up to my Hurst short throw shifter base with the adjustable stops, which are in there. I'll have to take that loose and adjust them. And I haven't accomplished anything else, literally. I mean, drive shaft's in it, just hanging out in there. And then, you know, my transmission cross members, that ratchet strap, and a 2x4. But I wanted to see what it looked like, and I love it. Love this wheel too. Telling y'all, I miss driving this car. But that's kind of where we're at. I'd imagine this is a pretty good video so far. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Motor mounts are final now. Transmission cross members got to be built. The sheet metal on the floor's got to be done. But once I start on that, it shouldn't be too bad. You know, now that it's all located where it is, and we can use the drive shaft without shortening it and getting it rebalanced. Because that's a 3-inch panhandle drive line out of Milton, Florida. Built me that drive shaft. It's got a Sunix yoke, solid joints. It's pretty stout. So it's kind of what we got going on. But look, if y'all enjoyed this stuff and you're new to the channel, we have got a lot of content on here, a lot of crusty old cars. This is probably one of the nicer ones, and in all honesty, it probably looks good on camera, but it's about a 50-footer. I think Ray Charles painted it in the barn with the lights off. The guy I bought the roller from was building a race car. Me personally, like, I don't really care. I want it to run, drive, and stop. I'm not big on the way it, you know, how nice it is, I guess. I am on the way it looks. I want it to have, you know, the right wheels and all that stuff. And I dig patina. Like, you know, we got some patina stuff out here. This is a 69 GTO we pulled out of a barn. That's Dad's Studebaker. There's 3 more GTOs out here in the yard. And one of my favorites, well, 2 of them, they're about tied. I got a 57 150 2-door sedan that we're putting a 427 big block in. And then that 57 pickup that we're going to convert to a short bed. Old Blue's the name of that truck, and do an LS swap on it. It'll be my new daily driver. And then, of course, I got my S10 that's LS that I daily drive. That's blowed up. Well, it ain't blowed up. Trans blowed up. Motor was good, but we're doing heads and cam on that. But we stopped because, guys, we're going to Power Tour 2023 with this car behind me. It is April the 8th. Yeah, it's April the 8th, and, hey, we got the motor mounts figured out. So that's good. But anyway, look, I appreciate y'all tuning in to the channel. If you like this video, throw it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. We're also on TikTok, Instascam, and Facebook, all under the same name. So y'all check it out. Let me know what you think. Throw a comment down there. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all be blessed.